Hey YouTubers, this is John, the Audiophile Pragmatist again, and I'm just gonna let you know about a trend that's happening in the audio business, and it's a disturbing trend. It is a trend that's happening with many speaker manufacturers, and I'm gonna list some, and that is that I've worked on lately, and that is the definitive technologies, which are a bipolar speaker, meaning they have speakers, they have drivers on both sides, they put out sound on both sides. These speakers are a high dollar speaker, right? And I've got two pairs of these in the garage, the older style, which were excellent. The only problem is that they're called socks. The grill goes all the way down. And if you have a cat, cats love them. So they tend to get torn up, right? So, and I've got a pair that got torn up, and also the woofer surround got torn up. So, or two pairs actually that have that problem. And I bought them for almost nothing, and I've repaired them here in my garage. Now I'm deciding what to do with them, to put socks on them or just put another paint job on them to where they look cool without socks, you know. But anyway, off the topic, what I want to talk about is these, and also another company that is doing this was in the same category as the BPs, the definitive technologies, and Martin Logan is doing the same thing, which is disturbing. Martin Logan is of course a high dollar speaker, very, very high dollar speaker, but they're doing the same thing as this company is, and it's disturbing. And another company that I would like to talk about is, I can't remember their name. Infinity. Infinity is doing the same thing with some of their speakers, and there are other speakers I've seen that I'm failing to mention that are doing the same thing. What I'm talking about is they're making, instead of just having a passive speaker with binding posts that you would hook up to your amplifier, there's actually a subwoofer built in, or an entire amplifier built in, a powered speaker. Now there are some reasons to have a powered speaker, like if you have a Bluetooth speaker, like this is right here. These JBLs are studio monitors. They're powered, and they're meant to be because they're very tightly control what they want their performance to be. So they are giving you exactly what they want you to hear. So the amplifier is built into the back of this, as you can see. So they regulate everything, the sound quality, the sound pressure level. So you can tone, even you can't even change anything. But so with this, back to this. What's the purpose of this? The purpose of this is so you can run it with a home theater amplifier, and it has a subwoofer built into the side of it right here, and it also have passive radiators down here. There's a passive radiator, and I can show you inside this one. Again, Infinity is doing the same thing. See, there's a passive radiator there, and a passive radiator there. And up there is a woofer. You can't see in there because just not enough light. So I should have turned the light on to make this movie. But also another thing I noticed with these speakers is the quality in general, and that is the definitive technologies that come with a nice wood cap on the bottom and top, and it was, if you got a scratch in it or whatever, you could restain it or whatever. This is plastic, right? And it's that I really hate this stuff. It's the fingerprint magnet piano black is popular, but once you get a little scratch in it, it's just about unrepairable. You can try magic marker or whatever, but shoe polish or whatever, but it's there forever. So, and you know, it doesn't even fit well. So, Anyway, if that's important to you, if it is, it is. If it ain't, it ain't. But I'm thinking that could even make noise if the speaker's really rumbling. So yeah, and here is the problem. You say, okay, John, you haven't got the problem yet, but except for the quality of the top, right? And it's the fact that it was cat magnet. Okay, well, if you don't have a cat, no problem, right? Here is the problem. The customer brought them to me. One amplifier is, so this is a crossover. This is what came out the back, right? And so this is the both crossover and amplifier for that woofer. And there's a mid-range and a tweeter. I think you can kind of see them. You see the gloss of the tweeter right there. There's mid-range here, tweeter, mid-range, what do you call it, mid-range woofer, whatever and then there's another mid-range here and a tweeter back here as well, so the fire front and rear. So what this amplifier is doing is only powering that woofer that's in there, and that your speakers are actually, in the crossover, is designed to split, or the splitter is designed to split the frequencies, so your amplifier is powering only the mids and highs, and then this amplifier that's built in here is powering the woofer. This is the power amplifier for that woofer. It is not very substantial. There's your power supply, or here's your power supply, and there's your power amplifier transistors. They look to be, I haven't looked them up, but they look to be about a 15 watt dissipation. So if this is a push-pull amplifier, which I assume it is, you're looking at you're only looking at maybe 30-40 watts of power here. This one here is just a regulator for the power supply. And of course, to give you size and scope, the size of this, the electrolytic capacitors are not big, right? These are quite small for a for a subwoofer amplifier. Of course, the speaker's not that big either. It's a 8-inch woofer in there that's doing the bass frequencies. So this I don't really have a huge problem with here. It's mostly discrete components. So look at that board. That board is high integration surface mount right there, with even some components in the back of it. And see here, we have surface mount. So the way they build these things is they call it wave soldering, and it's a machine that places the components on the sticky material in the right position. It's a robot, and then it is wave soldered like by a machine, and you can see where they've done some modification post production modification by putting a resistor in there because they found out they had a design flaw. But so you have two layers of this board, the layer here and the layer here. You have surface mount components here, and then you have some components that actually go through the board and are soldered in from the back. So if you trying to repair this thing is a real booger, because getting those surface mount components off, although this board not that bad. Let me show you the crossover board. This is the power supply board, and over here we have the crossover board. The crossover board on this, by the way, these amplifiers are made in China, and the same thing is true for Martin Logan and Infinity. They subcontract these boards out. They're made to their specifications, but they're made in China. So trying to find actual evidence of that says made in China on it, but it doesn't. Let's see here. It says Baltimore, Maryland on it, and that's where the company is based out of. So you say, John, how do you know it's made in China? Simply because of what I read. And the company doesn't actually have to tell you where it's made, unlike a car. So looking at this part, these type of capacitors right here, let me get a pointer. These type of capacitors right here, these are surface mount technology, SMT, and see how small they are. They get smaller than that. They don't last. Literally, they would last 5 years, 8 years. You're lucky if you're going to get 10 years out of them. These capacitors are critical because this is what makes up your filtering circuit, right? Or could be the power supply for your logic circuit. Depends, right? I haven't studied this circuit to know, or the manual to know exactly what all these do. All I need to know is to look at this and say that is not good. These are garbage. Not to mention, look at the glue that they use in here. So they put glue all over the place. And the same is true on this board. Look at that. They've slopped the glue so that nothing will rattle in here, right? So when the speaker is rocking, that you won't get anything rattling against itself in here. Because they pack things so closely together and so tightly that you have to do that. Unfortunately, a lot of this glue, you see I've tried to pick some off of it, but a lot of this glue, especially around these electrolytic capacitors like that, around the base, it can become conductive. And in many vintage receivers or amplifiers that I work on, the first thing I do is get that stuff off of there, because it has been proven that actually causes problems, and it starts conducting between components, and then all bets are off at that point. Anything can happen. So I want you to get a good look at this and see how difficult this board would be to repair. So this customer here, I told him that I'm not going to repair this board. Both of the amplifiers are bad, and they just went bad by sitting there, which tells me, so because he was using them and then he put them away for a while because he got a bigger pair of the same type of speakers, and he put these away for a few years. That tells me that these capacitors are bad. Taking these capacitors out, they're surface mounts. So you can see right there, you have to wick the solder off of that and wick the solder off the other side, off of all of these. And that's my guess as to why this is bad. But it's been in my experience in putting a soldering iron on there with wick and everything that you actually end up damaging other things. And so there's no guarantee that even if I fix this, I have all these capacitors in stock because I've done other work with these surface mount technology boards before, and it hasn't turned out well because putting a soldering iron down there. Let me show you. Putting a soldering iron down there, and getting these things out of there, you're putting a lot of heat on this board, and it ends up, see, there's a microchip right here, right next to that one. So putting a lot of heat on there, and there's a lot of electromagnetic lines of force, and there's just so much risk to do damage. So I could make this thing worse by trying to repair it. Now there's going to be people who tell you that they can do it. Yeah, a lot of people, they're probably 50% successful. And look at that glue. I don't think that glue is supposed to be spread over the circuit board like that. So notice that how tiny those those surface mount technology things are set in there. So those chips, they actually go right through to the bottom here, and just a nightmare to replace that stuff. You just don't. So the customer told me that the company is charging $300 per board, or per amplifier. So you can send away and get a new one of these made in China things and plug it into the back of your Definitive Technology speaker. And so they're $300 a piece. So he's into it for $600. So what he's decided to do is so on one of them, you can turn the volume pot and it does nothing. So the woofer's on full blast all the time, which tells me that this logic board is bad. And it could have been fried because of this glue that they put on, manufacturer defect, or more likely, all these capacitors are bad and would have to be replaced, which might incur more damage. So there's risk. I might be able to repair it, yes, but is it worth it? So what the customer decided to do, based on my recommendation, is to forgo this amplifier, right? And what we're going to do is, since he's got a robust power amplifier that he's using anyway for his home theater, what we're going to do is this. We're going to put this passive crossover into here. So what we're going to do is cross over these components. We're going to passively power them. After hooking up this crossover in there, we passively power the speaker so that these terminals on this board are no longer hooked up to the crossover in here, no longer hooked up to the power amplifier in there, but hooked up to the speakers are only hooked up to his amplifier through the crossover network, the passive crossover network. So we're changing the speaker from an active speaker to a passive speaker. And so that's an option for you. If you got one of these and it's gone bad, they probably all will, because if they have those capacitors in them, they'll all go bad, and I will guarantee it. So if you got a friend that has these newer definitive technologies, and pass it on, because you know what to tell them. The cost for doing this repair, to just putting this in there, isn't going to be much. I mean, even a good crossover is going to cost you maybe $50 for a pair, maybe $60 for a pair of crossovers. Again, they're made in China. There's no problem with that being made in China, because that's analog components, and it's not going to look any different whether it was made in China or the United States or Canada or wherever. So, that said, these new speakers I'm not a fan of. The BPs in the past were great. I have 2 pairs in my garage, like I said, waiting to decide what kind of artsy thing I'm going to do to those. But so that's basically it. So the Martin Logans, let me just speak on them for a second, because that's a speaker you're going to pay about anywhere from $3 to over $100,000, almost $100,000 for a Martin Logan electrostatics, and they do the same thing. I've opened up their speakers, and they have stuff like this, right? And I think I still have one of their boards laying around. So if you want me to prove it, hold on a second. Go in here. Yep. So this came out of a Martin Logan. As you can see, here's the power amp. And whoops. So not as bad as not as bad as high scale integration as the other one. Oh, that wasn't it. This is it. So this is the board that came out of a Martin Logan, and as you can see, it's very highly compact in there, very large scale integration of their chips and their resistors. So if I can get a good focus on here. So yeah, so that's a part from a Martin Logan. So they're doing the same thing. It looks very similar to that, only it's red, right? So, so fair warning. You could spend thousands of dollars on these, or tens of thousands of dollars on a pair of Martin Logans, and then you'd be faced with sending that circuit board back. And as these things get older, and I'm not saying Martin Logan uses those known bad capacitors. Oh, yes, I am. because there's one right there. But, and there's another one. So my advice is, don't buy speakers that are powered. If you got to plug a speaker in, don't buy it. So the older Martin Logans that had their only reason why they're plugged in is because they're electrostatic and they have to build that charge around between the plates, and that mylar moves in between them. That's fine. Those last 30 years, and they're generally problem free. But this stuff is going to be problematic. It's going to last you 10 years, but after that, you got to hope that this company is still in business and that they're still making parts. Otherwise, you're going to be coming to me and making it into a passive speaker. And in the case of a Martin Logan, it's so complicated. It's just going to be a nightmare, and I don't know if it's going to be even doable. So if it's a speaker that you have to plug in and has a subwoofer built in, just move to something else. You may like the sound of it or anything or whatever, but this poor guy, he's paying me a couple $100 to fix his speakers. Or if you wanted to fix them like new, he would be paying over $600. He'd still be paying me to do it, but he's going to be paying just $600 in parts alone. So we're talking, $700 to get the job done, to get these speakers back to normal. And they didn't cost much more than that when they were new, I don't think, if you bought them on sale. So anyhow, ramble enough. All right. Anyway, trying to give you some wisdom here. John out.